aisle, just a very quick note to say that we did struggle with some audio difficulties for this particular episode. So I do apologise that the sound isn't at its usual quality. We do deeply apologise. However, the content is so good, we still want to share it with you. Thank you so much. A very warm welcome to our Whispers of the Soul podcast, where we host conscious conversations with a spiritual and soulful twist. We and our guest speakers talk about life-changing events orchestrated from our soul, so that we can raise the profile of our quieter and more softer voice that comes from our intuition. So stay with us for your next soul download. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Whispers of the Soul. I'm Sally.
And I'm Sibby.
And today we have the amazing Katie Holland, who's joining us, and we can't wait to introduce her and talk to her about some of the just delicious things that she does and brings into the world. Katie, actually, I want to start with a quote that Katie has come up with herself, which is just awesome, which is, "All movement is divine when the heart is danced awake." So it just
gives me goosebumps.
It's a bit goosebumpy. We thought we'd just start with that. But for you lovely listeners who are curious about our guest today, the lovely Katie. Katie is an award-winning sacred dance therapist and creator of Awakened Bellydance. Katie's a renowned professional dancer with a passion for self-empowerment and self-initiation through the conscious movement. She has supported thousands of people around the world with workshops, trainings, and retreats. And Katie's also an inner dance facilitator and trainer. She's a powerful energy whisperer and a Paddy mermaid instructor. Her natural intuitive ability to hold space is testament to her commitment and a wealth of experience facilitating dance and energy-based workshops globally. Her aim, well, it's to infuse, empower, cultivate and share this inspirational, magical energy to all she meets. She lives in Sinai, Egypt. Have I said that right?
Sinai.
Sinai. She lives in Sinai, Egypt, after living in India, Bali, and Bulgaria for the past 20 years. She is immersing herself in the alchemy of the Blue Lotus and ancient Egyptian teachings. Wow. Katie is also the creator of Shakti Pants, sacred clothing and jewelry, as well as the founder and organizer of Serious Retreats, trainings and adventures. These extraordinary journeys are full of cultural and ecological experiences not usually found on the tourist trail.
Strange hearing all of that read out. It's a bit like, and then at the same time, I'm like, I should put my hair down and do this.
But on the other side of it, you know, you're thinking of all of those gorgeous creations that you're birthing and bringing into the world for people to participate in and experience, and you know, everybody's kind of stepping up a little bit more, I think, as time goes on, and you know, we're going through this crazy ascension process. So it's just awesome that you're out there, you're giving yourself fully to this whole process and helping others, which, you know, is phenomenal, really. And that introduction is testament to that. Yeah.
And how I'm really, because the first thing that sort of comes to me is the belly dancing. So how did that become? Because it's got a very, obviously it's got kind of ancient roots, hasn't it? But how does that? What role does that play in your spiritual life or the life that you, the way that you teach it? How does it kind of help people connect with their spiritual selves in movement?
I mean, for me personally, I've been studying dance since I was 3, and I'm 45 now. So all of my life, I don't know anything without dance. And I always knew when I was a child that when I went to dance class, I felt good. That was my kind of basic equation. And then later on, when I started to teach belly dance, I saw the same thing. Women came from all different kind of walks of life and different situations, and they had fun, they made new friends, there was a nice community. So it was like, okay, dance equals feeling good. And then I started to get feedback from people, like maybe about their periods, or maybe they'd felt more confident in their body. And because of this confidence in their body, they felt that they could leave their husband, or, it was like the ripple effect was massive. Or maybe they could go for that promotion at work, or, or leave their job that they were doing in the corporate world and then go into what they really wanted to do. So I started to see all this from, say, just a belly dance class, and at the time I was in my early 20s. So although in some ways I didn't have as much life experience maybe as some of these women, but I already had two young children by the time I was 24. So I was sort of also in life experience and experiencing in my own body what it was like to belly dance whilst being pregnant and afterwards. And so I guess really my whole life has been a learning curve like this. And
steep,
at hyper speed. And so I guess I started to kind of gather information and understand and see the effect that this art form, because belly dance is such a beautiful art form and so misrepresented. I started to see the wider effects of this, and then also, of course, when we had student performances, and this was massive for women to really be seen, and as well as for myself as well, because of course you're very, very vulnerable when you're on stage, and the whole emotional process around that. And that was one of the things that I guess was a big light bulb moment for me, was in my late 20s when I really went deeply into the self-work after I had this first Kundalini experience. And I started to study Gurdjieff movements, which is all about working with the patterns in your body and emotions, and then also Osho dynamic meditation. And I was living in India at the time, and I went back to England and I had some performances, and women came to me and they said that they were crying when I danced. And I said, what? I wasn't doing anything that I thought was emotional, and I don't, maybe it was like a Bollywood dance or something. And they said, there's something when you danced and it really touched me. So this confused me for weeks. And I was thinking I didn't learn anything different. It's like, there's nothing that I can think of. And then I thought the only thing that I've changed or that I've worked on is me, like my inner self. And then it was like, oh, they can see it when I'm performing, because something's opening and I can show myself in a different way than I was before. So I had lots of these moments through my life which collected in a giant bag of information to work with.
Wow, that is so powerful, because I think we can recognize, can't we, that if we do the work ourselves, or even just things start to shift within ourselves, it reflects back in the outer world. I love that story. Don't you, Sal?
Yeah,
so beautiful.
And and like you say, with the idea of belly dance, there has been some misrepresentation that's happened. But just for you listeners, I did do a very short, small workshop with Katie. So I've had some experience of how she works and how she teaches, and there's something, I want to use the word almost sacred and quite beautiful and almost intimate, actually, about the whole process, which I wasn't expecting or prepared for. I did come with an open mind, but it was just like, whoa, this has got so many levels. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you find with people's experience of it?
Yes, and the session that you came to was Awakened Bellydance. So we've got the belly dance side of the technique, choreography and performance. And then I created a dance therapy with belly dance as well, which I called Awakened Bellydance. Yeah. So they're of course interlinked because we're working with the same movements, but there's a different focus, or like a different, the more belly dance, the technique side, is more about the aesthetic and of course enjoying, but if you're working towards a performance, it's about how do I look, and am I dancing in time and with my classmates and everything. With Awakened Belly Dance, it's taking the focus inside. And when I was in my teens and I started to get interested in sacred geometry and then looking at all these interconnected figures of 8 and circles. So again, later on, I thought, well, these are the movements we're making with belly dancing in all different parts of our body. Everything is coming with 8s. So I thought, well, if it's creating sacred geometry, say on paper or in symbols, then this is what we're creating in our body. So of course we're cultivating energy in a different way. And so yes, Awakened Belly Dance, as you say, it's like very multifaceted and can be very intimate within the group, because we're going into the deepest parts of ourselves.
Mm. Yeah. Wow, I can almost imagine. I'm imagining people belly dancing, women belly dancing, and the shapes that they're making, the 8 shape. You know what I mean? I'm getting like a really visual thing. But yeah, that's so beautiful. What also came to me is bellies. We're often very. I know I've always been negative about that area of my body. And I had a conversation with somebody, I think it was like last year, and I said, the only time I've felt love towards my belly is when I was pregnant. I feel like that area of our bodies can have such a lot of, I don't know what your thoughts are, but can have such a lot of sort of negativity directed at it.
Yeah.
Is that something that you find with people that come and learn dancing with you?
Often the first question people say is, I don't have to show my belly, do I? And of course you don't. It's it's completely your choice. And it's funny, I think most of it's from the media. It's this programming that is imposed on us so deeply about what a woman's body should look like, and nothing is taken into account about aging or about having babies and stretch marks and cesarean scars. And I've got all of them. It's like I had a 10 pound 10 baby and a 9 pound 11 baby, so I was stretched and stretches upon stretches. And it's just bizarre. It's like because we hold so much, as you say there, and it's the place that we also digest, whether it's food or we digest life. And I think that often this aversion to our belly can be an aversion to digesting life, and in this kind of primal way of realizing or admitting to ourselves what we've really come here to do. If that's being repressed, then it's all going into the belly.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And
there is something, because I wanted to ask you about the conscious movement. There's something, isn't there, when you're connecting to, well, any part of your body, but in this case your belly, in a way that involves this technique, this practice, that almost is, I don't know if it kind of offers almost like a rewiring or a reset or just a different level of awareness, because you're, with that conscious movement, you're bringing it's an awareness, isn't it, to that place, potentially in a different way to like what Sibby was explaining, how a lot of women can have negative connotations almost to the body.
Yeah, and in the kind of more belly dance performance and classes world, you see women of all shapes, sizes, ages, with their belly out and really owning it, no matter what. And this is so beautiful, and women together with all these different sized bellies and on stage. So I really, really love this, and I think, again, for me, because I was so young when I got into it, it was really inspiring to see women feeling comfortable in their bodies. And then for the conscious movement part of it, it's not only our belly, we're bringing awareness to our whole self, so it becomes a full body knowing, because of course epigenetically we're holding so much everywhere, and even if we're holding it in one place, say, we've got an ache or a pain somewhere, and maybe it isn't actually ours, maybe we're holding it for somebody in our ancestry or something in the collective, and this is then knocking our energy system out of balance. So it's finding these places and looking at them and, okay, what can I do with this, and how is it affecting me, and how many lifetimes have I been holding this for, and then having the freedom of choice. So it's coming more into empowerment and self-initiation, that the person can really take responsibility for their own healing and self-empowerment.
That's really interesting, because I was going to ask you about the energy whispering side of it. So you've kind of already said there about that beautiful link. And yeah, just for people listening, could you explain a little bit more about that side of the work that you do?
Yeah, I've trained in several kinds of energy healing modalities, I guess you could call it. Reiki when I was again in my early 20s, so I taught Reiki for about 8 years. I don't do Reiki now, and then I trained in different courses from Access Consciousness. So a lot of people will have heard of Access Bars, and
yes.
I've done several of their courses, and then teach the Access Bars course and energetic facelift as well. And then along the way through the different dance modalities, or like the more movement therapy, so inner dance that I trained in, and Sufi whirling, and then the Gurdjieff and Osho meditation stuff. And again, I couldn't tell you this is from this and this is from this, because of course it's like a big amalgamation.
Yeah.
But I started to be able to connect to my body and then other people's bodies in a different way. And also because I've had several big Kundalini experiences. But as time has gone on, and even up until recently, I've had a lot of recall about when I was a child. So I know at the minute I've remembered back to when I was 3, and I had a big awakening at that point that was partly psychic attack from extraterrestrial side, and partly because of epigenetically the abilities within my family, and this was a kind of ripping open of my crown, I guess is the simplest way to say it. Yes. So I was exposed to lots and lots of information, and then some other things happened again when I was 7, and then as I got to a teenager, I did my best to close it all down, because I didn't know how to deal with it, of course, and I didn't speak to anyone about it. But I was seeing, hearing, feeling. It was like a bombardment day and night, and lots of ET abduction experiences, all kinds of things, combined with going to a clairvoyant circle for 3 years from when I was 7 to 10, because my grandparents had died by the time I was 7, and then other people in my extended family. So my parents were looking for answers. Somehow I was also going to these clairvoyant circles. So I was sitting with much, much older people, and it was like an open circle, so people could get up and give each other readings. My dad was doing this. And then I imagined that they were doing things like chakra meditations, and because I remember different kinds of guided meditation, but I can't remember exactly what. So I was really exposed to an immense amount of information. Yeah. And then I did an immense amount of partying as a teenager too.
Yes.
Yeah. And
do you know what? Can I just say, Katie, thank you for being that open and honest about your experiences, because, you know, there are people out there that have had these sorts of experiences and are just feeling too afraid to either acknowledge them or speak about them. I had very similar childhood to how you're describing, very, very similar. And I did the same when I got to teenager, just shut it down. So it's just, I just think it's so empowering for people to, you know, speak up and say what they've had and experienced, and to encourage others to do the same as well. So just thank you from myself and other people listening to share that, because it's important, isn't it, to have these sorts of discussions and be open about these experiences, because, you know, everything isn't all fluffy rainbows and unicorns all of the time. We've got this other side, haven't we? And we've just, if we can drop the fear and be more aware of other things, it makes a massive impact, I think. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to interject and say that.
No, that's all right. And I'm not sure if I've actually ever experienced the fluffy unicorn.
No, me neither. I was hoping that was on your serious retreats.
Well, yes, I can provide that in my own personal life. Yeah, so I through all of this, I had to do a lot of self-work and masses of shadow work. And of course, when this is something that lots of people want to avoid and escape from, but it's really the key to everything. And it doesn't have to be misery and doom and gloom either. It can be fun. But it's something that I feel is ongoing, and we're just gradually picking the pieces and the layers. And I guess, like you said about me speaking, because for quite a few years I've been giving podcasts and things, and as the time has gone on, I'm speaking more and more about stuff. And I know that the next years there'll be even more to come, because I thought I have to do this, because there's so many people coming to me that have not only experienced abuse but ritual abuse and things like mind control programming, and it's so in society but not talked about. And there's not many people who are able to support people in this way. And also, of course, often people come and they don't even know themselves, but there's certain things that I notice maybe from their response or from things they say about their dreams and things, and I think, okay, another one found me.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell me or us a bit more about Kundalini? Like, what does that mean? I started to look into it myself recently, but my knowledge is very minimal. So could you tell us a bit more about that, and also what an awakening for you looked like as in a Kundalini awakening?
I have to think of this because there's several parts. And one part of it is something that I've recently started to talk about as well, that I've felt for many years, but I wasn't talking about it openly. So let's say in the mainstream general information about Kundalini, it's that there's this kind of life force, you could say, or like our soul essence that sits as a snake at the base of our spine. This kind of awakened through different kinds of practices, Kundalini rises. So this is usually something that's done slowly in stages. It can also be over lifetimes. And of course, the ultimate goal is enlightenment and samadhi. So this can be something that people get addicted to, only in the chase of it, but also when they have felt it, they want that dopamine hit. And so they're looking for, like anything, they're looking for ways how this can be activated. What I've been looking at is that potentially there's some kind of overlay implant system. And then if you think about the chakras, because of the way it's like compartments through the body, and people talk about, okay, well, if you balance this, then it balances this, and you balance that, and then that. But they're never in balance. It's like one thing and it's all out again. So like it just didn't, there were certain parts of it that didn't make sense to me, or that didn't sort of sit with me. So I started to think, okay, well, like many things, is this aspect of something that's been taught, the real truth has been hidden again. And then in the same way, they're also holding lots of entities. And it's like, when you open your energy, and especially if you don't know how to kind of protect yourself or keep your energetic boundaries, you're open to everything. This is the same with astral travel, with, say, ayahuasca, even with something like cacao, or like Blue Lotus as well. It's like Blue Lotus is so subtle, but it's still changing your consciousness in a very deep way. And because of these experiences growing up and these attacks, you could call it, and how I had to learn to really stay in my body and feel safe in my body, and to take care of my energy and not take on other people's energy as well. Because of course, when you're very empathic, you feel like you're here to be responsible and heal everybody in the world, and you start taking on everything. And when I let go of that, life got so much easier. It's like, So, okay, so I'll come back to that, but just your other question of what happened for me. I was 27, so this was 2006 to 7. I hadn't been doing anything intentionally to work with my Kundalini. As I said, I was very psychic and very sensitive. I was really hit. And when you open your energy, it's like, how is it affecting me? But as I came to, I heard this voice saying, you have to create this therapy with belly dance. And this was like very clear. And I was like, what? Because at that time, I was fully in the showbiz world in India performing. And I was really in this celebrity world, and also dealing with the shadow sides of that. And so I was really feeling like I have to stay in my integrity, because for me it was like, I'm going to be a dancer. I get paid, go home to my kids, be on the beach with them. We were living in Goa. And so suddenly I get this message, and I was like, oh God, I don't know what to do. Like, how? And I just cried for 2 months, and I couldn't get up. I kept collapsing. My body literally changed overnight. I was like a skeleton. I didn't have fever. It was like not possible in this realm what happened to me physically. I had a complete burnout of my nervous system, my adrenals, and it was more like just dealing with how to sort of not cry, and all the realizations I was having about my life, and also coming to this point of, I've worked so hard to have my dream job, and which was what I was doing, and I'd accomplished everything and that I'd wanted, and beyond. It was like things I could have never dreamed of. And then thinking, okay, I'm 27 and I did everything that I wanted. And then, okay, now what do I do? Where do I go? And sort of, so then began an 8-year journey into what became Awakened Bellydance. So it was massive, really massive, and very frustrating, because of course I thought, okay, I'm going to create this therapy. And then it was like no information, nothing was happening. So it would stop and start in this way. And then, I had this endless kind of chatter going on. And so I had to really change that and say to myself, who am I not to bring this into the world? Who am I not to do this? This is like something that I realized I'd been carrying also since I was very small. And then that time I realized that I had to step away from this celebrity world and move from India. I got a very strong pull to move to Bali. And so it took about 2 years of hearing this, go to Bali, and step out of the dream job. And I was like, oh no, even my dad said to me, what on earth are you going to do? So we went to Bali. So it was very healing for me, and then more and more information was coming through, so that I could then go, okay, world, this is Awakened Bellydance. And when that happened, I again had another big Kundalini explosion. I wasn't that conscious this time, but it combined with a urinary tract infection and was very, very terrible, let's say. And I was screaming and had this massive sacral clearing, and was totally out of my body because I was in so much pain. And in that time, I got all these final informations about the name Awakened Bellydance, the logo, the kind of final keys about how I could get it from my body to someone else to understand, say for trainings, because I'd been experimenting and holding sessions all those years, and I was calling it different names like conscious belly dance and tantric belly dance, and just trying things out and seeing what would happen, and again building up my information, and so this time in Bali was really like the one, okay, and yeah, and then that was it really. It was into the world. So so that's now been the last 8 or 9 years, and again also evolving as well, and then going back to what I was saying with the chakras of Kundalini is the way that I've experienced it has been very extreme, and I've only met handful of people that have been through this kind of experience, and also I've been hit by lightning. I mean, I've had so many crazy things happen that have all been about this kind of electricity building up in my body, and it's been through learning how to how to manage myself that I've learned how to then work with other people. And then lots of people have come to me where they've gone to other modalities that they've been blasted open, and then just left. And then of course they're open to everything. So it's a really tricky business, this and Kundalini is so marketed, but mostly people who haven't actually had a Kundalini experience themselves. And the other part of it as well that I came to realize is that we're told that Kundalini is something outside of us that we're trying to work towards, or that we're trying to grasp. But actually, if Kundalini is our life force, it's already in us, because we wouldn't be alive. So as everything in this world, it's been inverted, and actually what it is that it's all the things in between. So our fears, our traumas, the ancestors' fears and beliefs around power that we're holding. It's all of this not feeling worthy, which, like I said, I had a big thing about this. This is when we get the integration, and this is really when our power comes into play. So I don't even really like to call it Kundalini, because it's being so misused. And so hopefully that makes sense in a wiggly way.
It's so interesting what you were saying about, people can misinterpret that as to what that means, and maybe go down, is it like a Kundalini experience? But it's not actually. It's just you kind of but that's it's so interesting listening to all of what you were just saying, because I was looking at you'd wrote about helping people with the chakra overlay removal, which I think you've just been explaining, isn't it? And the etheric implant removal and the psychic surgery, all of that sort of stuff, which again, it's not there's not loads of people that are doing that kind of work. I just feel like with most things, and when we kind of awaken and have a more of a conscious connection, it's through these sorts of conversations that facilitate that, so that it doesn't feel like it's too out there, or it's something that you can't talk about or share, because we're so complex, aren't we?
And also I think the stigma about death, because in all the things that you're saying, what's the worst that can happen is, okay, you're going to die. And we're conditioned again to have such a fear of death and this confusion. And when people are also again really connecting with themselves and allowing themselves to be multidimensional, you can access all of these realms and experience a disintegration of the physical and of yourself. And then you know that everything is okay, everything is fine, and it's like you're not allowing yourself to be in this box of fear. And again, speaking about extreme experiences, like now I've almost physically died 5 times now, and I've had countless sort of near-death experiences and out-of-body astral travel experiences, and again from when I was a child. And I'm really not an adrenaline junkie type person that's putting really not. And this crazy shit happens. And this is my friends, and they're like, "Don't tell me you've just nearly died again." I'm like, "Oh my God." So,
Let's go.
the thing is, I've had, again, I'm not sure how many times now I've had memories of being born, and literally I'm in the birth canal with my hands and feet on the walls, like, no,
I don't want to go
into that place. Like, and Kristen, like, the first time I saw it, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I thought I'm being born, and it was like, no, I'm not going to this place.
That is fascinating, isn't it? What's really like, there's so many things coming to me like while you've been talking, but what one of the things is the body, and you know how you find your purpose through movement, and then the extreme physical experiences that you've been through that have, you know, awakened you, which is interesting, isn't it? Because and thinking about sort of the psychic surgery and things, you know, we're so, the body, obviously the body is our three-dimensional vehicle, isn't it? But things like, you know, thinking about our energetic bodies as well, and how it all links up, and how it, more and more people are awakening to that we need to give this attention to all of our bodies, you know, not just the physical.
Yeah, and that we have this physical body, so it's not by accident, but what we think of as physical, and it's really a tool that we can learn through, and and also this idea that our body's carrying our soul, but maybe the soul is actually carrying the body because it's so big, and we're again being told, look outside of yourself for the answers or for what you want, but it's all, everything is here, and this is gathered from, you know, from the beginning. We've got all of it, and it's giving ourselves permission to have access to that.
Well, I mean, I think we're kind of running out of time. I would have loved to have asked you about the Blue Lotus work and the ancient Egyptian techniques, because I see the Blue Lotus oil. Actually, a few people have been talking about that in my circle, but I don't really fully understand what it is. Or
I can say something quickly about it if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So it's a plant or flower indigenous to Egypt, and very revered in ancient times. And if you go to the temples, especially Luxor, Abydos, Dendera, Abydos and Dendera is where they had the dream sleep temples, and they were doing lots of experiments again about astral travel, creating near-death experiences. And this also interested me because they were working with the Blue Lotus, and there's also, I found a hieroglyph on the outside, one of the temples, where it shows a woman with the lotus and also magic mushrooms, and it's very obviously mushrooms. So we think that they were combining them, because of course there's not really any information. There's a prayer or a spell in the Egyptian Book of the Dead about becoming the lotus. And we know that they use the oil as part of the embalming, and they've found lotus flowers within the bandages. But there's not really like a huge amount. So I've been working a lot, holding ceremonies, and again gathering sort of information from our own bodies with my friend Mona, and she grows the lotus in Cairo. It's called the Together Temple, so it's grown in a ceremonial way, and what we realized, and also from this legend of the lotus, is that everybody holds a part of the puzzle, and it's about synergy, that everybody brings those pieces together in an equal way, that everybody rises up. So it's absolutely not about somebody being the queen of the lotus, and that she brings to you what you need. So for me, I've had masses of ancestral kind of openings and healings through working with her, and that's been, it's 4 years now. So it was in the lockdown, because I got stuck in England for the first 8 months, and I thought, what am I going to do? And of course, all my work and travel was cancelled, and I managed to get some Blue Lotus, and I thought, okay, let's let's see, because I've always had crazy dreams and experiences at night, and I thought maybe this can help me to make more sense. And then had no idea I would end up living in Egypt. This happened
Wow.
the next year, 2021. And then when I looked back, I could see, because people said to me, oh, it's because of the dance, and are you going to dance there? And I was like, it's because of the lotus. She's pulled me in. And so I've been working a lot when I've been coming to teach in England as well, and combining with Awakened Bellydance also, and doing lots of workshops about becoming the lotus, and again these different stages, because the lotus is very connected to the resurrection. It's like the whole story of the birth, death, life. And as I said earlier, it's very subtle. It's not like mushrooms or ayahuasca or anything. It's some people don't even feel any kind of tangible effects, but it comes in the dreams mostly.
Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds awesome. I have really weird dreams. I'd really
do.
like to try it, actually.
I do. Mine are really vivid and very film-like almost. You know, they're very, the whole narrative. Really, So maybe I need to try.
Well, then it's the question of what's awake and what's the dream. It's the
yes, I know.
What we think is reality, is it really?
That's, it's just so interesting. And when you switch, because sometimes I'll switch from observing to being in it, to recognizing people that don't look like the people that I recognize them to be, to like really other kind of level dreams, and I'm like, is that a dream, or is that me somewhere else? Or it's kind of it just opens everything up, doesn't it? The dream.
I've
the dreams
like had where there's somebody in a dream that looks like somebody else but has the energy of a different person. Have you ever had that? It's really like when somebody, but they've got the energy of somebody else.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't that? Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
When this happens, if you can kind of teach yourself to do it and remember in the dream and ask truth, who are you? And ask this 3 times, and then see if what you think is somebody, if it changes.
Okay.
And shows the true energy or the true face.
And
I'll try that.
I know we're running out of time, but so I had this thing when I was going through that whole crazy stuff, and I guess it was partly psychic attack, partly entity stuff. In my dreams, basically I was getting thrown about all the time, literally thrown, but every single dream I couldn't see who was doing it. It was like it was invisible. And when I was 7, actually, when I was a kid, I used to dream of a black panther stalking, and I through some shaman work and having some shamanic healing, I came to understand that the panther was like a power animal, not to be feared, but it kind of had one paw that side, like shadow, and the other paw the other side, and so it kind of was a bridge to help me understand. But this dream that I had, it happened for years, like 10 years, constantly, and I still never got behind the invisible. It stopped because I did some more work and kind of realized it was more about me owning my own power, like you was explaining before about how that can kind of leave you open, and it stopped. I still to this day don't understand that, and so I'd love to I still feel like there's some questions around it, if that makes sense.
And what I realized over the years is that because I had things like that as a child, there's a couple of recurring dreams all the time. And often in these dreams, things were happening maybe to my family where I would agree to anything in the dream. I'd say, please just leave them and, do this instead. And when I started looking at things like soul contracts and like astral attacks, I realized that this is when you make those contracts. They're like orchestrated dreams to get you to agree to things that you wouldn't usually agree to because you think it's a dream. And so then you're making these unconscious agreements, but energetically they're held. And then because I kept thinking, I'm not giving permission for these things to happen. And why is it so difficult why does it feel so difficult to kind of keep this like energetic boundary for myself, and why do I feel that all these really crazy things are happening? And then I can't remember what it was, but one day it just clicked, and I thought, that dream when I was a kid, I was making the contract myself, because I was so desperate to change the story. And then I would wake up and I'd be crying and realize, oh, my sister's, because we were small and in the bed sleeping together, and I think I was 4 and she was 2, and thinking, oh no, she is alive, it's okay. And then it would happen again and again. So there's lots of things like this that are happening in the astral, where we're these illusionary reality states.
That makes so much sense. And the astral, I feel, changed a lot over the years. It's still changing now, but when you do think it's a dream, it's from what you've just said, I'm kind of going back now. It's an easy way in, isn't it, to get those sneakily, but get those permissions in, because the Black Panther dream was one of my recurring, and a 7-year-old, I'm not thinking about Black Panthers particularly. I don't think I'd watched, didn't even know if Jungle Book was the thing then, but anyway, showing my age now. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how these things can come in and you just don't even think about that. Wow, that's given me food for thought. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah. Pleasure.
Well, we will wrap it up, and it's just been an absolute delight from start to finish. Thank you so much for joining us, and
really appreciate
thank you for inviting me.
Really appreciate your honesty as well, and about your journey, and it's really powerful. And I'm going to be going away thinking about all sorts of things now, and
definitely
thank you.
Everything that you've already shared, and you've given me information and links, I'll put all that on the show notes, so for people listening, they can find you and find out more about you, and if they want to connect and follow you, they can do that. So I'll make sure I include all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks for listening. So if you would like to connect to us elsewhere in the multiverse, well, you can. You can find me, Sally, at thecreativeyou.co.uk, or on Instagram as the.creative.you. For Sibby, her website is healingrights.com, and she's also on Instagram as Sibby Writes. Lots of love. See you soon.